Chapter 19. "Is there anything about this that bothers you?" Tamret asked as we made our way to the portal. There had been another strategy meeting that took more than 2 hours, and it left me feeling more optimistic than I'd been since learning Gliwixix was a traitor. We had a solid plan, and convex icosahedron had given us some useful tech. The odds of our pulling this off actually seemed pretty good. Even so, I couldn't shake the feeling we were being set up. Tamret clearly felt it too. "Plenty," I said. "There's no denying that it's weird. Out of all planets they could have built an escape hatch to, it just happened to be Earth. I get that Earth is important to galactic politics right now, but even so. And it's strange that they just happened to recruit Colonel Rage to help them." "How about that alien having the same shape as the die you have to throw?" Tamret asked. "What kind of being is he?" "They're called geometric upstarts." "How is that a name for a species?" she asked. "It sounds like a gang full of math hooligans." "Totally," I agreed. "And there's more. Dr. Roop told me that it was one of the geometric upstarts who took my father off Earth to begin with. Somehow it seems like we're being toyed with, you know?" "Do you think they're manipulating us into doing what we're doing?" "I definitely get the feeling that in spite of all our arguing and persuading, we're doing what convex icosahedron always wanted us to do." "Maybe it's just how his alien mind thinks," Tamret said. "Not all species are going to be as similar as Rarls and humans." "I suppose that's true," I said, even if I mainly tended to focus on how different we were from each other. As far as I knew, the geometric upstarts weren't part of the Confederation. Maybe they'd been left out because they did think differently. Perhaps those differences didn't bother the renegade fads because they were more alike. Colonel Rage had always been willing to make deals with bad guys if he believed in the cause, so it wasn't strange that he had signed on. I must have looked worried, because Tamret took my hand. "You know," I said, "after we win, you could maybe take some time to see if you like life on Earth. If it's not for you, I can take you home." "You're not going to have access to space travel for years, remember?" "Earth won't, but I will. That was part of my original agreement with Gliwixix. If I did what she wanted, I would get my own ship." She scrunched up her face in a way that suggested she couldn't figure out how I missed something so obvious. "You don't think the fact that she was a traitor and therefore lying about everything might alter that agreement?" "I won't let anyone cheat me," I told her. "They are going to give me what they promised. And that means I'll be able to look out for you." "I don't like anyone trying to protect me," she said. "Not protect," I said. "Look out for. It's different." She smiled and turned away. "We'll see." I didn't know that we were done with this conversation, but that was okay. At least we were talking, and I knew what had Tamret worried. I knew that I could make her see reason, and that provided we survived what we were about to attempt, everything between us was going to be okay. The portal to Earth was an 8-foot-tall metal arch, located in the center of town. Convenient for anyone trying to escape a planet rapidly collapsing into a black hole. Convex icosahedron and several other fads were watching us from about 100 feet away. I didn't know if they were giving us a respectful distance or if there was some kind of portal wake they wanted to stay out of. "Let's go over this one last time," I said. "Seriously?" Misan asked. "It's not as though it's a hastily thrown-together plan to defeat the most powerful military force in the galaxy."
"That aside," Alice said, "I can't help but wonder if these guys are being straight with us. I mean, if this plan is solid, why are they sending us to carry it out?"
I shrugged. "Most of us are locals. We know the lay of the land."
"Colonel Rage is a local,"
Charles said. "But we don't trust him, so there's that."
"Do you think they intend to betray us?"
Charles asked.
"That would make no sense,"
said Niana.
"If they wished us captured, they needn't send us anywhere. We are already in their power."
"I agree," I said. "It feels like we're being tested."
"Yeah," said Steve. "I get that. But I think that if they want to see what we can do, I say we show them."
Everyone but Volonic agreed. He offered no opinion. He'd been much less disagreeable lately, and I wasn't sure why. Maybe I was getting paranoid, but it felt like he knew something I didn't. Okay, I said. Let's review this one last time. I called up some holographic projections from my data bracelet and began to review. There's a plot device you see in so many Star Wars movies, it's spilled over into games, comics, and novels. Whatever facility the good guys are fighting is vulnerable at a single point. The thermal exhaust port in A New Hope, the android control ship in The Phantom Menace, the Starforge in The Knights of the Old Republic, and Starkiller Base's thermal oscillator in The Force Awakens. Given that there was a vulnerable spot on Confederation Central itself, these plots had turned out to be surprisingly realistic, but it always felt a little convenient for me. I would have gone for some of that convenience now, though. The Fads were smarter than their fictional evil Empire counterparts, and they had a system of protective redundancy in place. There were dozens of access points for the subspace energy relay, and they all had to be shut down almost simultaneously via an encrypted system. That made a fair amount of sense, actually. Outside of some kind of disastrous emergency, there was no sound reason to shut down the power on which your Imperial conquest depended, unless you were packing up and going home. Fortunately, the Fadic Renegades had figured out a workaround. Anything that's made to transfer unfathomable levels of energy across the tear in the fabric of reality is going to have the potential to cause a certain amount of damage should such an emergency occur. The trick, then, was to make the Fadic computers think the relay system was experiencing a catastrophic power surge, one with the capacity to short out the entire system. When that happened, the relay could be shut down at 2 separate locations. A little bit of redundancy was necessary when balancing the risk of planet-destroying accidents and angry populations that might not like being conquered. So, instead of being in dozens of places at once, we needed to be in 3. 1, so a team could hack into the system and make the computers believe there had been a critical accident. And 2 other locations to begin the emergency shutdown. Once we cut off the Fad's energy flow, which the invaders needed to power their alien tech, we would send out a broadcast to every television, radio station, computer, and smartphone on the planet, giving the people of Earth a heads up that they needed to pick up a big stick and start swinging at Fads. We would then activate the planetary EMP, shutting down all remaining Fadic and human technology, making it impossible for the invaders to restart the system or use their ships, their PPB weapons, or anything else that gave them the ability to dominate a planet with only using a couple thousand soldiers. At that point, we had to hope the people of Earth would catch on and disarm or capture every Fad they could find. But by the time we deactivated the EMP, the Fads would either be utterly defeated or a battle would rage for the control of Earth. As for our families and friends in captivity, we had to hope the Fads looking after them would have bigger things to worry about than exacting a revenge no one would know about. In order to avoid major chaos, not to mention killing a lot of innocent people, I had Temret hack into the Fadic military computer network and ground all human air traffic halfway through our previous meeting. We agreed that we had to make sure there was no plane in the air when we activated the EMP. The downside was, the Fads would probably decide the only reason to ground all humans on the planet was a looming rebellion, so they would be on high alert. Steve, Alice, and Charles were all in charge of the shutdown station in Beijing. Misun, Niana, and Volonic were handling the one in London. Temret had uploaded to their bracelets an algorithm that would basically do the work for them. Their task was to take out any local security by means of short-range EMP. They'd be deploying the same sort of EMP insulating technology Ardov had used when disabling our ship, which meant they could still use their weapons and communication. I hoped they would have no problem holding their facilities long enough for us to pull off our operation at the main control station. The portal allowed us to plug in specific locations, and it was designed with infiltration in mind, so it would find isolated, safe spaces such as empty rooms or closets in which to deposit us. The plan was for us to remain in close contact via our bracelets. This is probably the most dangerous and stupid thing we've ever done, I said, once I finished reviewing all the logistics. I hope we don't all get killed. That's my kind of pep talk, Steve said. Steve then led his team through the portal to the Beijing station. A minute later, Misun looked at me, rolled her eyes, and led her team to London. Now, it was up to me and Temret. I set the coordinates for the portal. She looked at me, shrugged, and stepped through. So, why are we pretending we're in one of these entertainments you like so much? Tamrat asked me. It's not pretending, I explained. It's a safety precaution I learned from a movie. A code. You never know who's listening. She nodded. Your planet, your rules. We'd come through the portal into an empty office in the Subspace Relays control station, which had been set up in a building in East Midtown. It was a spacious corner office, so I could see the bolt of energy emanating from the Empire State Building, while enjoying a charming view of the East River. I was sure the realtor had described it as the perfect place from which to dominate the globe. I looked through the window at the people on the street, the cars slowly inching their way through rush hour traffic. It might have been just an ordinary day, except I saw a group of policemen sweeping through the pedestrians, checking IDs. All flight traffic should have landed by now, and the Imperial government, led by Nora Price, would be scrambling to figure out what was going on that required the grounding of all human air traffic. Security everywhere was going to be high. I keyed the communication system on my bracelet. Beijing, you there? Oi! Steve said. London? I tried. We're here, Mi-san said. We'll be ready to get started in about 2 minutes, I said. I think we'll need maybe half an hour to finish our task, so be ready to go on my mark. You just love this military talk, don't you? Said Mi-san. Yes, I said. I do. It makes me feel extra cool. Now stand by. We'll need more time than that, Tamrat said. No, we won't, I told her. We don't even know what we're going to be facing. It's not going to matter, I said. I took out the little bag containing the sample of powder and the dye. No way, she said, her eyes wide. She grabbed a hold of my wrist. You can't do that. It's not an emergency. Yes, it is, I said, gently pulling free. Everything depends on this. Everything. Not just my planet, but yours and Steve's, Confederation Central, the Confederation itself, and all the planets under Phatic rule. Nothing we've done has ever been more important than this. Maybe nothing anyone has ever done has been more important than this. We can't risk anything going wrong. But it could kill you, she said, glowering. She was clearly unhappy that I hadn't talked about this part in advance. I have an 85% chance of not dying, I said. And if I get a bad roll, I can still save all these people. If I don't take the chance, we won't get this done, and our chances of getting killed are a lot higher than 15%. You don't know that, she said. Yeah, I do. Convex icosahedron told me. He said that it was the only way we were going to be able to pull this off. He knew I didn't want to take the risk if I didn't have to. That I was going to take a wait and see approach about rolling the die. He said if I did that, we would fail. He told me I had to activate the tech tree if we were going to succeed. She took a step forward. Let me do it. I wasn't about to let her take my place, though. Before she could take a second step, I put a few grains of the powder on my tongue, and tossed the heavy die to the table. It landed with a hard crack and rolled a few times. I turned away, hardly daring to look. Then I felt a sting of pain as Tamrat punched me hard in the shoulder. Sometimes you really deserve to get smacked, she said. And that was how I knew I'd made my saving throw. I was grinning. I was in my happy place, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I had survived the toss of the die. Lucky number 13. And now I was running an infrared image of the entire complex through my data bracelet to create a 3D visual. We not only had the layout of the facility, but we knew how many people were inside and what kind of weapons they had. We were on the 37th floor. The control center was on the 68th. To get there, we needed to pass through 2 security checks. No big deal. Tamrat and I strolled down the mostly empty corridor until we got to the elevator bank. 3 human guards sat at a station there, looking bored. Aura scan, one of them said, not bothering to look up. Then he did bother to look up and saw 2 kids standing in front of them, one being a cat alien. Approximately 1.8 seconds later, he and his 2 companions were unconscious. I used my forging tech to examine and duplicate their security auras, and then pressed the button to call the elevator. Tamrat sighed. You like showing off, don't you? If everything goes the way it's supposed to, I told her, I'll never get to use these powers again. Let me enjoy myself. But to answer your question, Yes. Yes, I do. The elevator opened up on our floor with the second security check. There were 10 guards here. It took almost 3 seconds to deal with them. Then, while Tamrat watched, annoyed that there was nothing for her to do, I gained security access for the main control room. My infrared scan only told me what to expect in the first chamber, another 10 guards, as well as a couple dozen technical workers. The actual control room, which was basically a giant safe, was beyond that, and would contain more security. I showed Tamrat the projection of what we'd be facing. There are still some unknowns, but we can expect things are going to get messy. I'm going to hit the EMP as soon as we enter. Be ready to start stunning people. Guards and other fads first, then human workers. She had her pistol out and was activating the anti-EMP insulation that would allow our tech to continue working while the rest of the planet went dark.
Ready.
She leaned in and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. I thought she was being sweet, though I'd later learned she was trying to distract me.
Don't blow it.
I opened the door, and it was already blown. I knew that the minute I felt the punch hit my face. There was only one hand that could hit me that hard. Also, the furry fingers were a dead giveaway. It was Ardov, and he was at full power,